You are what you think you are. I want each of you to think of yourselves as scholars. Think of yourselves as budding authors, as nurses, as physicians, as lawyers. Think of yourselves as presidents and senators, and more than anything else, know that whatever you think you are, you can be. In his autobiography, Up from Slavery, the great noted educator, Booker T. Washington, tells the story of the call for donations to build Tuskegee Institute. Other people gave whatever they could afford, and the contributions were things from a quilt to stalks of sugarcane. And Washington writes of an encounter with an older woman, a woman he defined as about 70 years old, a woman that he identified as a former slave. And she was dressed in rags, and he underscored, folk, that her rags were clean. She said to him, Mr. Washington, I know what you're trying to do. And so I want to give you these 6 eggs for the education of these boys and girls. Whenever I give a talk of this nature, I like to leave my audience with at least 6 eggs. But I talked with a student last week who thinks I ought to give a dozen. So y'all got to bear with me, and if you're beginning to nod off, wake up, because I got about 10, 12 minutes more to go, because I'm going to give you a dozen eggs. And then you can pick any 6 you want to use here at Medgar Evers College. The first egg that I want to give you is change. Change. You are making the transition from high school to college, and that comes with major adjustments. Mama's not waking you up anymore to send you to school. Teachers are not telling you anymore what exactly you have to read. They're not going to tell you what's on the test. You got to grow up, and you have got to grow up and understand you're in college now. I remember teaching some freshmen some time ago, and they asked me what was going to be on the test, Howard. And I said, read chapter 12. And somebody said, well, what page is the test going to be on? My response to them was, this is college, y'all. You got to learn to read and absorb and decipher yourself what's significant and what's important. Change is the first egg that I want to give you. Michael Jordan, the athlete, said, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. I learned very early in college that regardless of how smart I am or how smart I think I am, I can't do it by myself. The way you get through Medgar Evers College or any college is you got to have friends and support groups. Learn to study together. Learn to help each other out. And if you can't find a colleague or a friend to help you with the math assignment or the physiology or the biology assignment, come to some of these folk on the stage. It's a team effort, this thing called education. You can't do it alone. We're here to help you. You have to recognize that you have to reach out and get the help that you will need from time to time. I could not make it through Ligon High School with my buddy Johnny Borkins. I remember his name. And I used to meet at Johnny's house 2 or 3 times a week because Johnny was a whiz in math and I was great in history and literature. And we'd meet at his mama's house and she'd always have some cookies and Kool-Aid. But the emphasis, young people, is on the fact that we were a study group. And that's how I made it through high school and college. And even in my doctoral program at Chicago, we had 30 books that we had to read for our preliminary exams. We got together as a class every other week to talk about the books we were reading because we understand that we cannot learn all of this stuff alone and by ourselves. Third egg, You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today, wrote Abraham Lincoln. And so I present you as a third egg, the egg of responsibility. You have the responsibility for your own learning. Yes, I've said to these students, folk, that they have to do it with a team, but they have to have some responsibility. They've got to take the first step. That's your responsibility. You have to grab hold of the fact that you are responsible for your own learning. You are responsible for who you hang with. You are responsible for getting up in the morning. You are responsible for getting to class on time. The fourth egg is the egg of initiative. Success, wrote Booker T. Washington, is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed. You know, you can come to a wide place in the road and water is preventing you from crossing the stream. You may come to a place in the road where there is a fork. You may come to a place in the road where there's a tremendous chasm and you can't get across. It's very easy to stop and say, I can't do it. I want to suggest to you this morning that you think on it. Have the initiative to go upstream or downstream or figure out a way to build a bridge. You have to have the egg of initiative. You have to be a self-starter. The fifth egg is leadership. Jesse Jackson once said that leadership cannot just go along to get along. Leadership must meet the moral challenge of the day. Leaders are people who take charge when nobody else is willing to take charge. Men, y'all got to do something about you relate to our sisters and our mamas and our grandparents. While there may be some personal risk, but if you see one of your buddies abusing or talking ugly to a young woman, you got a responsibility. You got a responsibility to be a leader and say, hey, dude, come on, chill. That's not the way to do it. Change comes about when you and I decide not to accept the status quo. When I was born, black men and women had to sit in the back of the bus. Where I was born, there was a water fountain over here for colored people and a water fountain over here for white people. That changed because somebodies throughout the South decided that that was not fair. Leadership is the fifth egg. Pride is the sixth egg that I want to give you. Martin Luther King said that if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare composed poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. I give you the egg of pride. Be proud of what you do. Be proud of Medgar. Don't let anybody bad talk Medgar Evers College. This is your college. This is your college. Defend Medgar Evers. And if you don't defend Medgar Evers, you are agreeing. That's not a reflection of pride. And if perhaps only, there might be an ounce of truth, then what you got to do is come back and use that leadership egg or that initiative egg and say, folk, we have got to change the way people are perceiving us. The seventh egg is the egg of family. It's the egg of family. You don't choose your family, wrote Bishop Tutu. They are God's gift to you as you are to them. You're not going to get through this thing we call education without letting mom and dad and grandma know what you're doing. Talk to them about what you're doing. And as you talk to them about what you're doing, they will ask questions. And you're going to find yourself talking about things that you know more about than you actually thought you did. I recall one of my friends telling me about his grandmother who made him show his grades when he brought homework home. Made him show the grades. It was not until after she died that he learned that she couldn't read. In some respects, it's kind of funny. But on a more serious note, his grandmother knew that if she didn't ask, she would suggest that she didn't care. Your parents, your grandparents care. They want to see you do good. So talk with them about what you're doing. And if there are things that upset you and bother you, talk with them about it. And they'll probably say, well, honey, you got to go confront it. You got to go do something about it. Talk with your families. Don't leave them out of the educational process. The eighth egg is the egg of faith. The egg of faith. Now, you know, I could really get off on a sermon here about faith, but I'm not going to do that because we're not in church, are we? Amen. I will tell you that you've heard over and over again that faith moves mountains. You have to believe in yourselves. But above all, have something to believe in. If you're Jewish, go to synagogue. Talk to your rabbi. If you're Christian, go to church on Sunday. Get up in the morning and do some readings that's healing for you. If you're Hindu, if you're Muslim, your spiritual underpinnings got you here. I would submit that you cannot leave it at the door. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that this is a religious institution. But I am suggesting to you that in my few years of life, I have learned that the spiritual self is an important part of myself. It should be an important part of you as well. And you will be that much more successful with it.